My friend's David Paulides, Canadian Missing Project. And this is Huck TV. Yes, this is her channel. She's the executive producer, and there she is right there. Yes, Huck is the prima donna. A very good girl. Cares about daddy, daddy cares about her. Oh yeah, that feels good, doesn't it? Yeah, good girl. Oh yeah, oh scratch me some more, Dad. Scratch me some more. Okay, I've got to get to them now. I'm sorry. You want some more, I know. Stay there. Stay there, be a good girl, okay? I'm sorry. I know. All right, folks. By the way, Huck is very, very good with that right paw and left paw. And when she wants something, she will tell you right away with the paw. And I've heard from many people that have Pyrenees that those paws are really good. Yeah. Now, today's case, this one really pulled at my heartstrings, let me tell you, in a huge way. I'm embarrassed that I never heard about it before until just a couple weeks ago. And this is why I need you guys to tell me about incidents in your area that match the missing 411 profile, because I'll never hear about them. Unless the case gets national publicity, I wouldn't know where to look. Now, the case today revolves around everything in my book, Missing 411: A Sobering Coincidence. If you've read this book, you know exactly what to expect. And what rolls out in this case is exactly that. So you don't know. I titled this Missing 411: A Sobering Coincidence. It involves young men, the vast majority in college, go out for a night of having fun. Point of separation, they're alone. And while they're alone, something happens. They're not found, sometimes for weeks, months, later found in a body of water. And then the rest about what happens, I'm going to let it roll out in this story, and I'll explain it to you. I know these are rough stories because of the parents, families, brothers, and sisters involved. And I've told you before, and you guys kind of make fun of me about this, but I almost think it's a profile point that the young men that disappear that I write about, these young men were like the best. I wrote about it in the book that time and time again, friends and family said that, oh, he was the nicest person, he would do anything for people, people loved him, blah, 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 blah. Great student, great athlete. Yeah, I could almost make that a profile point just for this book. But let's get into this case, and I'm going to slowly walk you through this. You're going to see why this bothers me quickly. Brendan Santo, 18 years old, missing October 29th, 2021, from East Lansing, Michigan, from the Michigan State campus in East Lansing. You got it? Now, he lived with his family in Rochester Hills, Michigan. It's kind of a far northern suburb of Detroit. And he was a graduate from Adams High School. Yes, he played lacrosse. And he played ice hockey. It's a picture of him in his high school jersey. Yeah, friends, that one got me. Well, He applied and he got into Grand Valley State College. And in October of 2021, he was a freshman majoring in cybersecurity. Kind of a little side note is that Brendan really liked to cook. And his mom would teach him things about cooking, and he took it to heart. And in fact, he told his parents one time, he goes, you know, I really like cybersecurity, but if I don't like that, I'm going to be a chef. You don't hear that very often from young people. And he was known as easygoing. He liked to feed friends. And people said he had a huge heart. Well, on the weekend of October 29th, Michigan State was playing the University of Michigan at East Lansing. Big game. Huge. Probably the biggest game in Michigan every year. And Brendan drove his car from Grand Valley State over to East Lansing, and he had a group of friends that went to school there, obviously, right? So he had friends in different places there on campus. Well, he was staying with student friends at a place called Brody Square. I'll show you that in a map in a second. Well, on October 29th, Brendan walked from Brody Square to Yakeley Hall to visit some friends for the night. And then at about 11:35 p.m., he left Yakeley Hall, to make it back to Brody Square, where he was going to spend the night. His car was parked over there at Brody Square, so he was kind of walking through campus, getting back there. He had his cell phone with him. At about 11:36 p.m., Brendan's cell phone pinged off a cell tower between 121 Charles Street and 49 Abbott Road, kind of near the Student Center. I'm going to walk you through this. So this is the hall that he walked out of. These are the two cell towers that his phone from here pinged off of, both of them. Got that? I'll keep this up. Then at 23:37 hours, a minute later, the phone hit off the 49 Abbott Road cell tower. Right here. So he probably was moving a little further this direction and forcibly hit off that tower. Then for almost 20 minutes, there was no ping off any tower. So the following morning at 9 minutes past midnight, the phone pinged off a cell tower at 57 and 5/8 South Harrison, and through triangulation it showed that his phone was 0.1 mile north. That orange dot is the cell tower that it pinged off of, and he was about 1/10 of a mile north. So it would appear that he walked under this freeway, up into this neighborhood, and was going to come down into this direction, because that was his destination. Brody Square. That's where his friends stayed, and that's where his car was. So at 9 minutes past midnight on October 30th, it pinged off that tower right there, 1.1 mile north. Here's the Red Cedar River. Goes through campus. No real reason for him to go right next to that river, and he had traveled all of this distance safely. So you kind of get what we're playing with here. Now at 2:39 in the morning, Verizon Security reported to the campus police that there was what was called passive activity on his iPhone. That can mean a lot of things, but they believed that it was an automatic app update. And it was such a weak signal, it didn't say which tower it pinged off of, and they couldn't tell. But Verizon said since 2:39 in the morning, there's been no activity. So I tried to make sense of this. Does that mean that the phone was activated and working at 2:39? It was very unclear. The next morning, 10 o'clock. His friends are up. They're looking around for Brendan. They can't find him. They look outside. His car's there, so they know he hadn't left. So they call his buddies over at Yakeley Hall, and they said, yeah, he left. And they check his car, and everything seemed normal. His bag was still in the dorm room where he was going to stay. His friends get nervous, and they call campus police, and they report him as a missing person. And they call his parents and tell him what's going on. So the police do what a police should do, is go back to the last place they can confirm he was at, Yakeley Hall. Well, they know that outside of every hall, there's closed circuit TV. So they go up to the camera to pull out the memory card, and then they notice that the camera's been disabled. Now this is weird. In the campus police report, they stated that many cameras on campus had to be disabled because of federal law. Yeah, they all know you're there. They had to be disabled because of federal law, because the chip inside the camera didn't comply with the federal law. I've never heard this. They didn't explain what it meant. But all of these cameras on campus weren't working. What's odd about this is that the stories I have written about in the book all have very similar things. Cameras in certain areas never work. Nobody sees anything. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. It's weird, folks. The coincidence factor is off the scale sometimes in these stories. So they could never tell if Brendan walked out of that hall alone or he was with somebody else. The police did a cursory search of the route that Brendan would have taken, and they find nothing. Now, he was wearing white Converse high-top tennis shoes, kind of unusual, a black t-shirt, a baseball cap. He's about 5'10" and 160 pounds. Looks like he has curly, dark brown or black hair. He had a little mole on his chin right there. So the police aren't getting anything. No help with the cameras. Nothing on the trail. Now, with this case, and like every other that you can imagine, the police have to start thinking he's in the river. Even though there's no evidence he's in the river. Nobody saw him fall in the river. But October 31st, the Michigan State Police had their dive team and a helicopter deployed into the area. Michigan State Police helping the campus police. They had canines searching the area, no absolute hits. They had 200 civilian volunteers that offered to search the banks and the campus. And detectives at this time were contacting Verizon Security trying to get the cell phone data that I explained to you about just a little while ago. Now, here's how it works. First of all, you got to know you have a cell phone with you. Then you have to know the carrier. Well, they found that out from the parents. Then police have to fill out a subpoena, normally, and give it to the cell phone provider or a search warrant and request the data from the phone. Sometimes this can take days, weeks, just depends on the provider. And then they give you the information. There's some things about what I told you that don't make a lot of sense to me. And the number one thing that still doesn't make sense to me that nobody has clarified is this 2:39 in the morning ping. My question, going back to that Verizon security agent that was listed in the report, if the phone was in water, would the app automatically update anyhow? Or does the phone have to be on and connected to a tower in order to update? Now, I have a phone. I understand that my phone has to be on for it to update. So if the phone was in the water, how would it update? Now, the other thing is that an Apple phone, it is said, could be underwater for 30 minutes. You could take it out and it will still work. So what happened here? How did that phone and a possible app update? If I was the police, I would not only contact Verizon, I would also contact Apple and get an explanation on how this happened. For a multitude of reasons. Multitude. Moving on. Police searched the same segment of the river from the point where Brendan was near it downstream. Now, Brendan's parents obviously made aware of the situation almost from the beginning. And during one of those early searches, campus police on a trail found a Motorola cell phone in the primary search zone on a path. They said in the report that the screen was broken. Now here's the logic used by the campus police. They said that they knew that Brandon was carrying an Apple phone. Oh, this is a Motorola phone. It can't be related to what we're doing, so we'll just put that in lost and found. Oh my God. Okay, let's pretend for a moment. What if Brandon's walking down at night and some bad guys get in a fight with him? It's dark outside. They don't realize they've dropped their phone until they get home, and they're not coming back to the scene because they're afraid the police will be there. And now it's the next day and the police find the phone. Seems logical, right? Possible. How can the police say it's not associated? My question is, what if they activated the phone, did a search warrant on the phone, find the owner and realize, oh yeah, they were a witness to what happened? Yeah. But no, the campus security just put it in lost and found. Unimportant. Okay, I'm not going to hammer them too hard. It was part of the case, but it was put in lost and found. I don't know if they ever did anything with it. Now, they did a multitude of searches in that area, ongoing, finding nothing. Well, this is getting big play in the Detroit area. And one lady is paying a lot of attention. Let me show you. This was a part of the wanted poster, missing persons poster on Brandon. You can kind of get a good look at the young man. He oftentimes wore a Detroit Red Wings hat. So this lady's paying attention, accumulating the facts, seeing the police get frustrated, eventually give up. Weather turns cold. I mean, he disappeared on October 30th, October 29th, then November and December, and it's getting really cold. River gets frozen partially. This lady sees the parents going through enormous grief, Brandon's parents. That coupled with the lack of results, After a few weeks, this woman, Katie, sits down with her husband and talks to him. She says, Ryan, you're the one person in this world that could probably find this boy. You need to go do it. Please, I'm asking you to go do it. Well, Ryan's just not your average guy. Ryan's a private investigator in Michigan. Ryan was touched by his wife. He later said that she'd never asked him to do anything like this before. But that maybe it was because they have 4 kids of their own, and they could see the grief on Brad and his wife, the parents. Ryan said he couldn't say no to his wife. He said that the first thing he did was email Brad, the father, and asked if they could meet. And they ended up meeting at Ryan's office. This is after things had slowed down enormously. Everybody had kind of given up. Ryan said that Brad told him about the family dynamic they had. And friends, get this. I'm not making this up. Brad said that Brendan was the perfect son, brother, and friend. I know you think I lie to you and I say these things just to make the story better. No. This is the type of person that I'm talking about. Unbelievably, Ryan said that the meeting lasted 5 hours. He goes, I don't even know it lasted that long. I couldn't believe it. And near the end of the meeting, Ryan said he knew Brad would never give up looking for his son. But he said to Brad, I'll make a commitment to you. I'll stay with this until we get closure, good or bad. And then Ryan said to a reporter that was interviewing him, I've never made that kind of agreement with anybody. I've never made that commitment. You're not supposed to. But he said, I felt like I had a kinship with him. I felt like I knew him for years. Stop right there. You know how we talk about kindness? Every email or every video I do, I talk about kindness and how we need more kindness in our world. People to reach out, extend themselves. Friends, Ryan did that. He didn't have to do it. But it just goes to show how many good people there are in this world. At a time of the greatest need in his life, Mr. and Mrs. Santo had this man walk into their lives. So Ryan started to make the commute from his office to the banks of the river in East Lansing. He said it was freezing cold, weather conditions frigid, parts of the river icy. And he said that some days he'd go there and watch the flow of the river, see what had changed day to day. He had some underwater cameras. And one of the cameras, he said, he could watch on a screen and look live at what it was seeing. And on another camera, he said that he'd have to take the pictures and go back home, download them, and look at them then. So he said, sometimes I'm blindly clicking off pictures, just hoping I get something. And he said that he had seen a lot of weird stuff under the water. But on January 20th, 2022, okay, remember, Brendan disappeared October 29th, so you have all of November, all of December, and most of January now that Brendan's been gone. Ryan made one of those trips to the campus and onto the banks of the Red Cedar River. He said that he was walking along and he noticed a bunch of pumpkins floating in the water in this one area. Kind of stagnant water. He said he was about 1.5 miles from where the primary search zone was downstream from Brendan's last known location. He said he put his camera in the water, started clicking off pictures. He said something told him about this area that, maybe he floated in here. Maybe he's down there underneath all this garbage. He said he had to rush back home because he had to coach his kids' games that afternoon. Wow. Just like me. I'd get off early and rush home and coach Ben's games. And he's saying this, it's just... About 11 o'clock that night, he finally gets home, kids get in bed, everything starts to settle down. And you kind of have that private time to yourself, right? I know all about this. And Ryan said he had time to review the photos he had taken that day. He says he's reviewing the pictures under the pumpkins, and one picture shows a photo, just the bottom of the shoe of a white high-top Converse tennis shoe. Yeah, the kind Brendan was wearing. And Ryan said that it was the kind of shoe that he knew the river wouldn't take off his foot, so it was still on his foot. And it was too unusual to just be happenstance. There aren't that many people wearing those shoes. So Ryan took the photo, ran upstairs, showed his wife, Katie. Katie looked at it and said, "That's it. I think you found him." So you got to remember that Ryan had this super close relationship with Brad, the husband. It was near midnight. But Ryan said that he knew that Brad hadn't slept in weeks and probably wasn't sleeping right now, so he tried calling him on the phone. Nobody answered. Thought it was just too important to wait. So he drove over there, knocked on the door. Brad answered. He showed him the picture. Brad agreed that was probably his son. That morning later, Ryan called the campus police, advised them what he found, gave them the location. And Ryan said that he didn't want to be hovering over that spot. And he also didn't want Brad there when they pulled that body out of the river. He didn't think he needed to be there. And Brad wasn't there. And Ryan wasn't there. He was parked a few blocks away just watching. But at about 12:30 in the afternoon, they recovered Brandon's body. Right where Ryan said it was going to be. In the interview, near the end, Ryan said that he could not have found Brendan's body without God's guidance. We've talked about this before too, right? And he also said that Brendan wanted to be found, he thought. And he says that since he's been back, there's a sense of calm about the place now that there didn't exist before. Well, the body was sent to a contract medical examiner for autopsy. The report came back that there was no water in the lungs or in the stomach. But they listed the cause of death as accidental freshwater drowning. And an associated factor to be a blood alcohol level of 0.22. Bingo. A cookie cutter to every case I've written about. .22. 0.08 is the legal limit to drive. So, according to his blood alcohol level, he was almost 3 times the legal limit at 18 years old. That's extremely hard to believe he was even able to walk at that age with that amount of alcohol in his system. A Detroit news station did an interview with the chief medical examiner from Oakland County, different county altogether. And they asked him about no blood, nor no water in the lungs or in the stomach. This is what the man said. Not everyone who is found dead in the water drowned. A person may be dead and placed in water. Also, there was no full body x-ray done of Brendan. That's unbelievable, folks. That's unbelievable. Why, Dave? Well, you do x-rays to find maybe there's a bullet in him somewhere. Right? But they didn't do anything. They didn't do that. They also never released the chemical composition testing for drugs or narcotics in his system. And you know why I'm asking that? Was GHB on that list? Remember what I told you about GHB in the book. Remember missing 411, a sobering coincidence. All cookie cutter cases. Let me run this by you again. The victims, young, healthy male college students, out at night drinking alcohol. They separate and they are alone. They are super nice people. Everyone likes them. They're friendly. They're athletes. They're in good shape. And they're smart. The primary autopsies rarely, if ever, test for GHB. They normally do a standard 21 or 24 drug screening, and that's it. And GHB is not on that list. Investigators can never, ever figure out the entry point into the water. There's not tracks through the snow that go into the water. No, there's none of that. There's not a sidewalk off a hill going into the water. No, there's none of that. Not all colleges with rivers, lakes, and ponds have this issue. Again, there's never a witness of the person going in the water. found 3 articles that stated that Brendan was found wearing clothes different than what he was seen with earlier in the evening. I could find nobody else talking about it. I could find nobody explaining it. I don't know if it was true or not. I'm just telling you what was reported. These young men that I've written about, including Brendan, were not suicidal. So get that out of your head that this was some kind of voluntary disappearance, that they wanted to take their life. No. The other one, canines and cadaver dogs never tracked to the body. As I've explained to you before, when a body's underwater, it's emitting microscopic bubbles of decomposition. Those bubbles can be smelled by cadaver dogs on the banks of the river and on the river in a boat. The thing is that these people, in my books, dogs never smell that. From what I could tell, they never smelled it in Brendan's case either. When Brendan was found, his phone was on his person. Still. Now let's go all the way back to the morning he disappeared at 2:39 a.m. when his phone updated. How did that happen? Please tell me, somebody, how did that happen? When Brendan disappeared, you can kind of see in this picture right here. He's wearing a Celtic cross and a gold chain. Ryan knew about this, and he asked some divers that worked the case if when they found his body was his cross on it. Divers later got back to Ryan and said that cross made it. It was still on his body. It was around his neck. If you're involved in this one case, it may seem to you that logically you could wipe it out of your mind by saying, oh yeah, Brendan fell down a hillside into the water and drowned. Okay. Like I said, maybe you could analyze that away and reconcile it in your mind. But you see, I can't. And not only have these happened throughout the United States, they've happened in Alberta, British Columbia, New Brunswick, Ontario, Quebec, and Canada. They've also happened in France, Spain, and the UK, and probably many other countries that I just don't know about them. Now, I've explained to you the criteria. I have no idea how the doctor or the medical examiner came to the conclusion he drowned. The other part of this, I've told you in the past that many times they can't determine the cause of death. But remember long ago with this book, there was a famous detective named Gannon in New York who found the same thing about this. These cases, these water deaths in New York that didn't make sense. Remember that saying he coined? It's his, not mine. Local reports for local consumption. Let's soothe the community. They'll believe whatever I say. Even though I can't justify it, I'll say it anyhow, and everyone will just go away. He drowned. I've said it before, I'm going to say it one more time. When I came out with these cases, I was contacted by a chief coroner in one of the biggest coroner offices in the U.S. Huge office. She said, Dave, she met me. My son Ben was playing a hockey game in, where? Boston maybe, or New York, I can't remember. But this person drove to see me. They said, Dave, you're onto something big. You're onto something big with this. You know how I know? Because all the coroners in my office talk about exactly what you presented in your book. It's not normal. No, it's not. When we can't determine a cause of death, or when we put down things we won't in our office, but other people do, like this guy maybe did, I don't know, just to soothe the public, yeah. But these water deaths, Dave, you're onto something big, and GHB's involved. And she tried to get me into a coroner's conference to talk, and they wouldn't accept me. She tried hard. She goes, no, all the coroners need to hear this. So, Mr. and Mrs. Santo, if you're out there, I feel for you immensely. Ryan, you did God's work. Paulides out.